This election is not just a big win for Donald Trump. It's a huge victory for Republicans, winning control of the Senate. And with Donald Trump winning both the popular vote and Electoral College votes, the results are not only a victory for the now President-elect Trump, but a gain in the progress that he made previously. So joining us with more this morning is Republican strategist Cory Crawley. Welcome to your morning. Great to have you here. All right, is this the result, first of all, that you were expecting?
Well, I think it was the result that most people were expecting going into it, with the exception of the final weekend, when you started to see polls coming out, like in my home state of Iowa, where it looked like Harris was starting to take a lead or at least gain some momentum. Was the clock running out? Had she had another 2 weeks maybe to capitalize on that momentum, things may have been different. But this was Trump's to lose, and he certainly did not lose.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Where did this campaign get it right?
Well, you know, it got it right, I think, in the very beginning of this one. He surrounded himself by professionals. He surrounded himself with people who run traditional campaigns, and they kept him disciplined. They kept him on message. Until the very end, they weren't really letting him ramble and give the speeches that he was used to giving. You saw him lose the discipline there near the end, but they really formed the argument about the economy and were you better off 4 years ago than you are now? And I think the resounding answer you saw from the American people is we want to go back to 4 years ago.
Oh, I want to ask you about the people that are surrounding him this time around, because we'll remember 2016, Trump came into this position with zero political experience.
Right.
It really felt, especially for the first couple of years, like he was just figuring it out and we were following along.
Yeah.
He now has one term under his belt. So how is this Trump going to be different, or compare and contrast with the Trump of 2016?
Well, I think to the extent he has an agenda that he wants to accomplish, he now understands Washington enough to get it done. You know, that's the really hard part when you come to this town as a novice politician like he was the first go-round. You don't know the players, you don't know how to actually move policy and get it done, and you don't know where the skeletons are buried. Now he knows all of that. And I think it's going to be a more effective presidency, maybe not in terms of everything people want to see, but in terms of what he wants to get done for himself. It's going to happen.
Cory, you'll remember people would joke in his first term about it almost feeling like The Apprentice, because the people around him were getting fired on a carousel. It felt like. Will we see a more solid team heading to the White House?
I think you're going to see a team that sticks together more, because he's going to pick his own team. Last time he took a lot of advice about who you've got to bring in to look presidential. This time he's just going to put together the cabinet he wants and the advisors he wants, and I think they'll stick around a lot longer. And you saw that with the campaign team this time too. He really didn't change horses midway through.
Okay, but one thing that was consistent was the rhetoric during this campaign. How much of that was political speak? How much of that was campaigning? And especially in the beginning of his term, and how much of it is going to actually be mandate and policy?
Well, I think you're going to see him on economic policy, on border policy. I think he deeply regrets what he didn't accomplish when it came to the border last go-around and immigration. I think you're going to see him push a lot of that. And I think without the influence of Jared and Ivanka, his daughter and son-in-law, which it doesn't seem like they're going to join this administration, he's going to focus on his own priorities. They really shifted him to Israel and Middle East policy, to criminal justice reform, to things that they thought were going to be big winning issues that needed to get accomplished. And this time, it's going to be red meat, conservative issues that he tries to get taken care of.
Okay, so we've talked about the border issues. He's been clear on that. We've talked about his international mandate. Where does this leave the situation with the war in Ukraine?
Well, that's going to be really interesting. You know, President Zelensky was one of the very first people to tweet congratulations this morning. No one watching this probably closer than him. What Trump's going to have to contend with, though, is what looks to be a very strong majority for Republicans in the U.S. Senate. And Republicans tend to be hawks on these issues, especially against Russia. And so I think look for him to see some resistance from Congress if he tries to withdraw our support for Ukraine.
We'll have a deeper conversation, I guess, a little bit later about reproductive rights and what that means in America, but I can't let you go without asking you. Earlier we were speaking with our political analyst Eric Ham, and he said it's not just the Republicans coming back to the White House, it is the MAGA Republicans coming back to the White House. Republicans used to separate themselves as Republicans and Donald Trump Republicans. He's now won 2 elections. He's going back to the White House. Is this the new Republican Party?
I think yes and no. You know, if he comes in and wants to make it the new Republican Party and really solidifies his red meat issues like we were talking about a minute ago, and if he tries to pass the mantle to J.D. Vance and he's successful in that, then yes. If this just becomes a continued cult of personality where once he's no longer on the ballot, it just goes back to traditional politics, or all these voters he's brought out no longer turn out to vote, then it's really not a transformation of the party. It's just about Donald Trump.
Cory Crawley, like everybody here in Washington, it was a late night / early morning for you. I want to thank you for being here.
Glad to be with you.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.